Whether it makes you laugh, cry, scream, or fly, there's a song for every emotion. We're Mike and Priya, and we talk about the songs that make up the soundtrack to your life, because life is in the lyrics. Hey everyone, I'm Mike.
And I'm Priya. Welcome to Life is in the Lyrics, the podcast about the role music plays in our lives.
And we'd love to hear from you. Mm-hmm. So please send us an email at lifeisinthelyrics@gmail.com. Slide into our DMs.
Saying that.
Yeah, slide into our DMs on Instagram at The Little Podcast. That's the LIITL podcast.
That is correct, sir. You did a good job on that. Thank you. And today is a very exciting record because we have a guest.
We do.
We do.
And she's very interesting and very cool. We'd like to welcome Katie Pretti to the show. Katie is an artist, a painter. She has her master's in contemporary art, design, and new media. Oh, gosh. Hold on a second.
It's a long degree.
Master's in Contemporary Art Design and New Media Art Histories from OCAD University. And OCAD is here in the Toronto.
Yeah.
She's had residencies in Montreal, Buenos Aires, Brooklyn, and studios in New York, LA, and she calls the Sixth. She calls the home.
Yeah. And I believe it's called Buenos Aires.
Oh, Buenos Aires?
Anyways.
Is it Katie? Is it called Buenos? How do you say it?
Aires.
Aires? Okay.
Mi español es horrible.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Oh, she's showing us up. Okay,
Sneak
great.
peek on our
guest, and she's already showing us up. Okay, well, Katie's art has also been showcased and auctioned in various cities around the world, and she currently has an exhibit which all of you in Toronto can go see. It's on at the Bay, Queen Street, in The Room, which I believe is on the third floor.
I think it's called the Hudson Bay now.
Hudson's Bay. Yes.
Hudson's Bay.
On Queen Street in downtown Toronto. So the room is on the third floor, and it's where all the fancy designer gowns and everything are. So you can go, fancy like that. You can go and see 21 of her large-scale paintings there until the end of February. So there's plenty of time for you guys to catch it all.
Great. Thank you, Priya.
Oh,
and
you're very
welcome,
Yeah.
Katie. Welcome to our podcast.
Hi.
How does it feel to be here?
Good. I've never had a microphone like this in front of my face before, so this is a very new experience for me. But
I've got so many dirty things to say already,
oh
but I'm
my
going to
God.
hold it in.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold it in.
I'm not too sure if Priya gave you a brief
I
on
did.
her
I was
inappropriateness.
warned.
Okay.
I was warned.
She was warned, yeah.
Have you been on any podcasts?
no, and so we sort of discussed this. During COVID, I did a virtual interview for a series out of a residency that I did in Picton. These people run Sparkbox Studio, and so they had a TV channel.
Oh, okay.
And of course, COVID.
Yeah.
None of my technology would work. The screen was like, it looked like someone had rubbed Vaseline on it, which I was secretly happy about.
Oh my God.
It gave you a nice glow, I'm sure.
It did. It
Dewy.
was like the romantic haze.
I heard the story that Cher, did you ever see the movie?
Moonstruck?
No, the burlesque one. What was that called?
Oh, with Christina Aguilera?
Yeah.
I think it's burlesque.
Is it burlesque?
That
It might be
sounds like
burlesque. Apparently, it was in the contract that all of Cher's camera shots had to have like a bit of a haze or something like that.
Well,
I don't know if that's true.
Back in the day, like in the 50s and 60s, I think, or maybe even the 40s, they used to have different lighting for men and women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and if you look at movies from that era, you'll see that the women are always presented in this soft, sort of very flattering light, and the men are more stark and not quite
and more
so.
harder edges?
Yeah, kind of.
And was that the case for you in COVID when you were on this TV?
I'm going to say absolutely. It was intentional and
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
No. It was definitely a happy accident, though, I will say. I don't feel super comfortable in front of cameras
Yeah.
at all. Like, really, I'm that person.
Yeah, me neither.
Oh, really? Get out of here, please. Yes,
Such a
Priya's
camera
really uncomfortable being center
so
of attention.
shy.
Yeah.
So shy.
So shy. All right. Well, let's get into this amazing podcast episode because we were talking earlier before the podcast started, and I was mentioning how excited I was about having you here because, I mean, obviously this podcast, we talk about music and how it impacts our life. And music, of course, being a form of art. But you take it to a whole another level by utilizing music. It kind of informs and influences how you put paint to canvas. So how did that come about?
Well, it's a little bit of a story. I think as a child, I was super interested in music, but I didn't have any instruments until I acquired, as a pretty young kid, an electric keyboard. And I mean, this thing probably had like 21 keys. It was very, I mean, calling it a keyboard, it was more like an organ.
Yeah.
But I would fumble around on that, and then my mom realized that I was teaching myself songs by ear. And then in the 80s, which I'm a child of, there were piano stores in malls. It was a thing.
Right, yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so, of course, we're in the mall, and you cannot pass the piano store without me trying every piano.
Right.
So I tortured my mom probably for years doing with that business. And then at one point ended up getting remarried. And when she sold her home, she decided that $500 from that house sale was going to go to my first actual piano.
Oh,
That
nice.
must have been, that's a lot of money from back then. Like
Yeah.
back then, right?
Yeah. And this thing's huge. And my mom's little. And just, she was really just, she loves to tell the story. Oh, she named the piano Imogene. The piano has a name.
Oh, nice. Do you still have the
After
piano?
somebody?
My mom has it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she's had it restored.
Oh,
It has been moved
nice.
so many times that it's been a little bit damaged. One of the pedals
Right.
was damaged, but she had it removed. And so she's teaching herself how to play the piano.
Oh my God. That's
a
so
nice
great.
full circle story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does she ever participate? Like, do you ever bring her in? Does she help you with your practice or anything like that?
Oh man, she's been probably present for a little bit of everything. Not in the making. I tend to be pretty private with the actual making, but she has rescued me from airports. She has driven me across borders with like her car filled with
Work.
like a huge sonotube full of massive paintings
Oh my
rolled
God.
up trying to get through the border without them asking us
Oh my
questions.
God.
Right.
She's definitely like put me up in between this and that.
Yeah.
She's driven me to install work where she has now learned to just leave the building because I get a little,
It could be intense.
Particular.
Yeah.
well, it's so important.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's moms for us, right? They're always looking out for us. What were you going to say, Mike?
So you started out with this musical curiosity.
Yeah.
And can you remember when the visual, that other visual creative side was ignited?
Not to bring my mom up again, but she is probably a true Renaissance woman. She has done so many things to support herself and us over the years. One of those things was being a portrait artist, a realist portrait artist.
Oh, wow.
So I
Okay.
had really lucky, easy access to a whole slew of art supplies from a young age.
Right.
And she let me use them. And some of them were expensive things, and she wasn't fussy about it. She let me. And so I'm drawing and I'm playing the piano and like learning. Once we acquired the piano, I got to take lessons and all those things. So long story short, I mentioned that she got remarried. Her wonderful husband was a frequent patron of Roy Thompson Hall.
Right. Okay.
And so he would take me to the symphony. I'd never been to a symphony before. I didn't know what a symphony was.
How
Wow.
old were you when this happened?
Probably under 10.
Wow.
Under 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time going?
I remember getting dressed up, wearing
Oh,
the fancy
okay.
clothes like stockings,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
and driving down. And I feel like he had his name engraved on seats. Like, this is how much of a patron this man
Oh,
was.
wow. Okay.
But he was so cool. He had so many records, and he would sit in his headphones and just jive to the music, always classical. And so one day he handed me a mixtape and a notebook, and he said, "Listen to the music and draw the music." And so I did, and that was the genesis of
Wow.
the thing. Yeah, so I have him to thank for that.
And that is actually coincidentally how Katie and I met doing that exact workshop.
Yes.
So I am programming a series of like express yourself sort of workshops, and a friend of mine suggested I talk to Katie, and she was like, "Oh, you might." I said, "What does she do?" And she goes, "Well, she's doing this workshop. It's like drawing to music," or I can't remember exactly what she said, but I remember thinking, "Well, I don't even understand what that means." But then we chatted, and it's a really cool workshop. So now I see that your initial inspiration from how your whole art career developed is kind of the beginning of this workshop too. Now it's kind of full circle for you too, in a way.
You're acting in the role of what your stepfather did.
Yeah.
Why do you think he asked you to do that?
I don't know, and I really just I wish I could have an adult conversation with him about that. Unfortunately, I haven't spoken to him since like 1994, I'll say, which is a cry and shame because, again, he was so cool.
Yeah.
And I really think as adults, we could have had a lot in common. We probably do have a lot in common.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely think he knew that the reason I wanted to play the piano was because I wanted to feel the music. And I think that he thought, okay, here's a tactile way of feeling the music, putting colored pencils, it was, to this notebook paper.
Right, right.
But I think he probably, if I remember correctly, was really envious of my ability to play the piano, and perhaps he was envious of being expressive because he was a very analytical thinker. And so I think having that sort of freedom to, I want to say swim between different skills in media was something that maybe he couldn't do, but maybe wanted to do. And he saw me being interested in both, and he just thought, here you go, do this. But he made a lot of mixtapes. I wasn't necessarily that special. But that doesn't mean I'm not appreciative. I wish I had that mixtape. I can, they were the ubiquitous classical musics, like Flight of the Bumblebee and things like that. And those are not things that I listen to now, but huge for me.
Interesting that he married your mom, who had a creative side, and that he was very interested himself in music. So there was a creative connection for him, and that he was, I want to say the word brave, but that's not the right word, but he had the aptitude or something to see that in you and then encourage that.
The foresight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think I'm not sure how often parents will encourage their kids to develop their creative talents versus their athletic or academic focus on those sorts of things. But, this was the 80s, so, maybe, I don't know. It's just like my sense is that encouraging the pursuit of creativity isn't, the number one focus. So I think that's kind of cool that your stepfather saw that in you and encouraged that.
Oh, yeah. And I'm lucky to this day with my mom. She's so endlessly supportive. And so is my dad, for that matter. But, my mom has always been, I actually remember her saying to me, just pursue what you want to do. Please, do the thing that you want to do. I'll be proud of you no matter what. Be a garbage collector if you want to be a garbage collector. And, I'll still be so proud of you. So myself and my sister got super, super lucky.
Oh,
that I think is pretty much what you were trying to say, right?
Yeah.
Because most people, especially in my background, they will say, be a doctor or a lawyer or something very professional and, like a career. But they're not encouraging you to go off and be an actor. Although my mom was super supportive of me and whatever I wanted to do too. But it's not very common to say, go and embrace the arts and be free and be happy.
Yeah. What's your mom's background?
Wow, she's a Toronto kid, humble upbringing. When I was a kid, really didn't have a career. When my folks got divorced, she had to invent her own way to make a living. And I'm not kidding. She was so inventive. At one point, she was teaching fitness classes to elderly ladies in the basement.
Right.
She's been a receptionist. She's been, like I said, a portrait artist. She also studied graphoanalysis, so she's a handwriting analyst.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
She was, at once, you have to stay qualified, but she's still a master gardener. She was also a birthday clown at one point.
Oh my God.
She's the coolest.
She's very, very diverse.
Yeah, she's super cool.
I totally connect with you on the child of a quote unquote broken home, and having a parent, especially a mother, who, they're survivors, right? And when you're taking care of your children, you will do whatever it takes to ensure there's a roof over their head, there's food on the table, right? The reason why I asked about your mom's background was because my parents were working class, emigrated from England. Neither one of them went to school after high school. They left when they were 13 or 14 in England. And I went to university, and they were like, yeah, do whatever, we'll be proud of you, that similar kind of thing. And then when my parents broke up, my mom, she worked in a factory. And then when the factory closed down, she, like your mom, invented her career. So she had started a cleaning business with a friend, and that evolved into something else. So that drive, I think, is quite inspirational. Do you see any sort of connection around any of those elements of your upbringing to the way you are in your own practice and in your own pursuits?
Sure. I think the most obvious thing is the fierce independence. I think both of her children ended up being what she would even call fiercely independent, like to a fault sometimes. But sure, I made up how to make this thing that I'm calling painting. And I was given permission to do that. I was given free rein. I was told, no, just do your thing and don't worry about labeling it. Like my mom wouldn't have the vocabulary to say, don't worry about labeling it, but that's what she meant.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about how exactly music is related to your work, because it is actually intertwined with your process. It's integral to your process, which I found really, really interesting. So tell us a little bit about that, and then I'm very curious to know like what genres and if there are specific songs and stuff that speak to you.
Yeah, so early on in my practice, so I did my undergrad at OCAD as well, before it was a university. In fact, this is when they had just gotten the D. So prior to that, it was just OCA, which was way cooler. But anyway.
Yeah.
So I was a printmaker. I went because in my young 20-year-old mind, no one could teach me painting. I had already arrived at art school saying, nope, I'm not taking painting because I already know how to do this, and it's mine, and you're not going to take it away from me, which is the same reason why I didn't do a fine arts painting master's, but that's beside the point. So I'm already like fists up going, you can't tell me what to do, art school. And so I went through printmaking, but of course my love of printmaking was all about line work, and etching was my medium of choice. And so what I realized is it was the drawing that I really, really liked. And so I'm doing my undergrad and adjacently had a practice of drawing at home. And, I had roommates. We had a beautiful studio. We got lucky. I mean, this was several years ago. So we had this huge, huge open space. We were all in our corners, like making whatever we were making. And I would put up giant sheets of paper, buy the biggest sheets that I could find. I remember walking home. So I lived at Queen and Brock. From OCAD, I walked home with, the photography backdrops?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So
Just
you
'cause
were
it was
working that size?
That size.
That's massive.
Also, there's a paper that you can get fairly inexpensively off the roll that's 50 inches in diameter. So you can, is it diameter? Length, width, whatever.
That's like over 4 feet, right?
Yeah, it's large, yeah. So I have long arms. I'm tall. You can't see that. Listeners can't see that, but I do. I have long arms, and I feel really trapped in little surfaces.
Right, yeah.
So I had this large-scale drawing practice. And
your space must have been huge.
Yeah.
To have 3 artists practicing in one space?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We were so lucky. And I wish I had that space now. That said, my bedroom was literally a dark room.
Oh, yeah.
So, it was large enough for a twin bed, and that was it. And a litter box, a twin bed and a litter box.
Oh, so you had a cat. Okay, but just sidebar here. Don't you kind of miss those days a little bit as well? Like the carefree and how naive and kind of ambitious, but just so naive and pure we were back then. Well, not about pure, well, not you, but it's just that kind of naivety around anything's possible.
Exactly. And yes, I do.
Our life is ahead of us, and like you just pursue the things of your interest, and oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything went to rent.
Yeah.
And art supplies. And then there are those times when, oh, right, we have to eat. What do we got? I literally remember one time we had a can of beets. I don't know why we had a can of beets.
Yeah.
We had a can of beets, one apple.
Oh my God.
And a can of mixed beans. And we were like, okay, what can we
Oh,
do?
jeez.
And we did. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was disgusting. I
Yeah.
mean, the
Yeah.
beets and the beans, maybe not so bad, but
No, it was
throw an
gross.
apple in
Oh
it.
no.
was
No,
gross.
it's gross.
There were a lot of tofu sandwiches.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, like you have a slice, I'll have a slice, 2 sandwiches, check.
There you go. Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh, no, but I still love tofu, I'm not going to lie.
I love tofu, but what's a tofu sandwich? Like, what did you put on it to flavor it?
Gosh, I don't even remember. I mean, probably
Beet
like
juice.
we
Right?
just mashed some of the salad in there.
Right.
It was good. I don't know, mustard maybe. Mustard.
okay.
Sounds
Okay.
like something I would do. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe those days aren't as nostalgic as I was thinking.
I mean, we
but,
do romanticize them a
Yeah,
bit,
we
don't
yeah,
we?
yeah.
Yeah, it was so carefree, and we could just express ourselves.
Express ourselves.
What
and-
did you eat? Oh,
yeah.
just crackers and jam.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, crackers
Yeah.
and jam were like
things
you were
I could-
doing well.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So you were doing these large scale drawings,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just your own interest. You were at school for printmaking, but this was really where you seemed to be gravitating
Yeah,
naturally.
that was the real thing. That was what felt good, and it was always about feeling good. And so, we're in this communal space, and I'm in my headphones all the time, just to somehow distance myself, and that ended up being, I don't want to say my safe place, but that was really just like shutting out everything. It allows me to focus. And so sometimes I'll even just put my headphones on and not listen to music, and it changes
Yeah.
things. So I live in headphones. In fact, I wish I had brought my headphones because they are disgusting. I've had the same ones since those days.
Really?
Oh my God,
And they
really?
still work?
Yeah, they still
That's
work.
cool.
And just to like tie in things we've already talked about, I lost my art studio during COVID. That's a very sad story. So, topic of a whole other conversation. But my point being, I had to store my piano. So I moved into a very ridiculously tiny apartment.
Right.
And so no room for piano. Everything's in storage. And so one day for my birthday, my mom surprised me with a keyboard. And I was like, thank you. And then she was like, and here are these speakers. And I was like,
Oh my God.
oh my gosh. And headphones. So they're the exact same headphones that I had been using, only they were pristine.
Right.
Oh.
So I've got a backup if and when these guys conk. But I think someone told me that headphones and so speakers get better with age, and I really want to believe that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in my headphones all the time, listening, realizing that I would get to the point where I wasn't actively listening. Like it had become like a meditative thing.
Right.
And then I realized that the way that my hand was moving was echoing things going on in the music, whether that be the tone of the music, the speed of the music. And I'm using really primitive drawing materials at that time. It was really just charcoal and ballpoint pen.
Okay.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah, those you could get those anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun on the ground.
Yep.
New art supply.
Walk into the
Yeah.
bank. I'll take 5
Yeah.
of these.
Oh,
Seriously, hotel pens. Thank you
Yeah.
very
Oh
much.
yeah.
Yep. So it was a really organic thing that I sort of just stumbled upon. So somewhere between just sort of protecting my private little practice and immersing myself in whatever I was listening to at the time, really it gave me my baby little niche.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you listening to at that time in the 80s? What was driving your creativity back then?
Well, it would have been in the 80s. I don't remember. Rick Astley, probably.
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Never going to give you up.
Yeah, no,
Never gonna let you down.
Still can't. I know I had the Right Said Fred tape. I can visualize
Oh
that.
my
one.
God. Yes. Yeah.
Was that
but
the I'm a no.
I'm
that's
too
not I'm a
sexy.
model. I'm too sexy for
for
that.
my
Yeah.
I'm a
something.
model, yeah.
Yeah.
But in those days, it would have been more like Massive Attack and a lot of early Bjork and things along
Okay.
those lines. And then, then the boyfriends come into the picture. And of course, I'm always dating musicians, apparently.
Oh.
And I had a major crush, major crush on this person that I basically stalked for a year.
Oh wow.
Like playing the long con. No, we're just friends.
Yeah.
Until he broke up with the other one. And
Yeah.
so I like launched myself into that. And we were together for quite a long time. But my point is, he was in a band.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we both have this funny memory of him being like, oh no, what's her art going to look like? And me being like, oh no, what's the music going to be like?
Oh my God.
And so apparently he was pleasantly surprised, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised. So this is So the first song in the playlist that I put, the really aggressive screaming one,
that's
that
from
guy's band.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I was listening to a really math-heavy rock screaming, not angry per se, but I mean, if you heard it in comparison to other things, you would probably assume anger, but just like really, like you get to the end of that record and you're winded. And I loved it. And I wanted to make people feel that way. And I thought, okay, how do I translate that?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm always thinking about, like just taking the thing that I feel and how do I break that down into colors, directions, and at this point now that my media has expanded to include painting,
and poetry, right? Is it poetry? No, you have a book. I was reading about your book. Is there not poetry? Did I misread that?
It's a bit of a mind fuck. So the book is called Sonority of Words. Can I say fuck?
Yeah. Go for it.
It's called Sonority of Words, and so it's like, what do words sound like? There are no words in this book. It is a book of drawings. It's a book of drawings.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So
it was. I'm sure that people expected to get something that they weren't going to get, but it was a neat little book. It is a cute little neat book. You can still buy it at Art Metropole, I think. Yeah,
and did you work? Did Art Metropole publish it? Was that part of their...
They launched it. It was a new publisher, and actually they ended up doing a lot of artist book publishing eventually, but it was myself and two other people. We all made our first books. We all launched it together. We had this cute exhibition at Art Metropole.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure it's still in their inventory.
Oh, that is cool. That is very cool. I want to go back. You're talking about how you realized as you were listening to music that your strokes and your when you were drawing and the way your arms were moving, that it was mimicking the music. And it immediately made me think of this is not creative, but when I'm running, and we've talked about this in the podcast before, where like a playlist can have such an impact on, like, for exercise, it really impacts the way I feel and, how motivated I am or how much energy I put into something. And when I go for a run, when it's not minus 30 as it is right now outside, when I go for a run and, the pace of the music, I tend to run with the same pace, and the hands and the fingers are going, and music has that power to kind of like get it into you and kind of make you just
take over
move.
Your body.
Yeah.
Right, without thinking about it.
Yeah.
I just love that so much, but I'm just so glad there's no camera in my studio. I hope there's no camera in my studio.
That would be such a cool installation, though, if you were to do like a
time lapse or something. Would be very cool.
No.
Yeah.
You could do it from the back, from behind, so that you don't have to see your face because you're seeing the work, right?
She's like, no, that's...
No, still no. Yeah. Well, I found that interesting too, like just you talking about how the music kind of speaks to how your brush strokes go and everything. Because when I'm looking at the exhibit that you have on at the Hudson's Bay right now, like your pieces are very different. It's not like you have... like a lot of artists like Picasso or Jackson Pollock or something, they have a very specific style, and maybe I don't know their art well enough to know if they have other styles, but I just know their popular work. But your pieces are very different. Like they can be very different. So some of them have like, they're beautiful, sort of like the whole canvas is full of color, and then some of them are more sketch-like. So is that in relation to the music you listened to when you were making that piece?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. The way that I come up with anything that I want to work on is I will... the first thing is, what's that feeling? What is the theme? What is this complex like bundle of emotions that I really want to hit someone with? And before I even get to like the canvas, I'm already figuring out what's the music going to be. And then that will determine the color palette and all of those other things that happen before putting like paintbrush or oil stick to paper or canvas.
So give us an example of, like, and you also, when I was reading some of the materials that you gave us, you said that you will listen to certain music on repeat for days, weeks, months, until it inspires what is going to come out of you artistically, which I find interesting because I did that with the Eras Tour set list before Taylor Swift came to town. I listened to it for like 3 months on repeat. And so I was ready to go. But so what would be some of the songs, like if there are popular songs or something that we might have heard of that have inspired some of your works?
Oh, popular is just not going to be the word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, anything we might have, any artists we might have heard of?
Well, I can tell you exactly. Here's what I'm listening to. So I'm opening my Spotify. I use iTunes for older stuff and for my favorite songs. And then, okay, so you've heard of Fever Ray probably? No.
Fever Ray?
No.
Fever Ray. Have you heard of The Knife?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Fiona Apple.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. We know that
There
one.
you go. Let's see. Cranes. Do you know the band Cranes?
I've heard of them, but I could not probably name a single one of their songs.
That would be my favorite, I'll say, commercial band of all time. They're not even a well-known band, but
Sing us a few bars.
hard no.
Okay, what genre? What genre are they?
Well, I would call that, you know what? I read a review. In fact, do you remember the store Cash Converters?
Yeah.
So I bought a CD. So my roommate at that place that I lived that I keep talking about, one of my roommates, and that would have been the year 2021. It was their second or third record. Anyway, where I jumped into Cranes was 2021. That album is a beautiful, crazy, I would say borderline electronic album. So that's sort of when like the rock bands started to incorporate a little bit of electronic elements.
Yeah.
So I loved that record. It was at Cash Converters, and I stumbled upon an earlier record, which is just amazing. And interestingly, I opened the CD and there's a clipping. So it was a review of this CD.
Oh my God.
And the writer had said that they sound like a doll trapped in a toolbox. So.
Oh my God.
And that's the end of part 1. And I know, we promised you dick pics. But just groove on over to part 2 to hear that ridiculous conversation.